Forward. This is Brace for Impact from Organizing for Tomorrow. I'm here with the group. Talk about what's going on, some advances in science, some moving backwards in politics. It does feel like there's a lot of backwards in politics lately. But as we make an effort to not de-evolve, I need to do the thing. Apparently, there's some sort of problem between Restream uh, and posting on your Twitter right now. So we have to actually do a share from your little. If you're doing this yourself and you're having the problem, the fix is you have to click on your account um, and click on the live button and then share from there, and then it'll work. Or so I've been told. That's what I did. So speaking of, no matter how bad you feel like you're doing, just remember you're doing better than Donald Trump. So,
Happy President's Day.
Happy President's Day. Right, I forgot. Abraham Lincoln will be proud. The Republican Party has really gone places. Yeah, no, it's, I think the really interesting thing we're seeing more than anything is a reduction in his schedule. Like, we were talking earlier about, like, is there, like, what is like the thing that Trump has done? There's always something before the show to be like, what is the thing Trump has done besides everything getting progressively more awful? And he's showing up less and less. Except Melania is talking about leaving the White House again, which the last time we heard talk of Melania leaving the White House, she left the White House. So, so let's not forget that happened. But we're seeing what is called sundowning, right? Sundowning, where people who have cognitive decline start doing things in like a narrower block of the day. So it's like early in the day, and then more and more people are making decisions for him, and then he'll do like weirder and weirder stuff when he's out places. So you're gonna see a lot of changes. That I assume usually people don't improve when they're at his age and diet and COVID infections and all the things that have gone on. You just don't usually improve. So we would see kind of things go the wrong direction, which it seems like I could be wrong, but that's having a president who's only there a couple hours of the day might not be the best time to send, I don't know, like a war armada to Iran. Any thoughts on that, Jesse? Is that a good time?
Yeah, I mean, this has been going on for weeks now, but yeah, he shouldn't be making these decisions.
Is he?
Yeah, so, I don't know if you want me to go into the whole thing.
No. I mean, you might as well. You were so. I mean, you know more. You've been an anti-war activist for longer than most, so you have a pretty good background on like what is going on here, and it just seems like we have all the wrong people making all the wrong decisions.
Yeah, well, one of the good things that Obama actually did was the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA, which was called the nuclear deal with Iran. And Trump, in his first term, pulled out of it. And so all this talk about getting Iran to come to the table, they were already at the table and they already signed this, and Trump unilaterally pulled us out of that deal. So when this happened, I don't know when that was. I think it was in June. Yeah, June. Basically, we were gonna go talk about a new nuclear deal with Iran, and Israel decided to attack them before we
they
could.
blew up the negotiators, right? Isn't that what they did? They like, but they missed them. Was it those guys? I can only keep track of how many times they've killed the negotiators in the middle of negotiations. So maybe I'm mixing up assassination attempts.
It's easy to get confused. That was actually the Hamas.
Okay.
The Hamas negotiators, in Qatar. I think, was it Qatar?
Yeah, they were in
I think
Qatar.
And yeah, that was. It seems like their MO to sort of blow up negotiations, because that was a different negotiation.
I thought that was supposed to be a figure of speech. So someone should tell them.
They really did do it, and then that started the 12-day war with Iran. And Trump made a threat and said in June that they needed to come back to the table, and he's giving them 2 weeks. And then he went ahead and 2 days later bombed them. So we're at this position now where we're it seems like we're doing that again. We have negotiations set up tomorrow, which is I think the second negotiation since this started over again with Kushner and Witkoff and the Iranian counterparts.
How do you not
So
just feel like the girl on the ring? You know, like you watch the video and it's like 7 days, it's like 14 days. Like I can't see how they could like take this kind of action and not see the similarities to like popular media.
yeah, and the story keeps changing. It's just like the same thing that he did with Venezuela, where it's like, it's about drugs. No, it's about the oil. No, it's about this. No, it's about that. The story keeps changing. So it's about the nuclear deal. Now it's all of a sudden about Iran's ballistic missile program, or it's about regime change, or it's about the protesters. But it's so it is about regime change, I think.
Oh
Um,
well, I mean, yeah, because it's like how you can't put in a puppet government unless you change the regime. I mean, the current regime is the response to the last puppet government, which like it wasn't bad. Like my understanding, you know, in Iran before the big revolution, it seems like you look back on it, it was a nice place to live. But it seems like at the same time, like pictures don't tell the whole story, and you get this pushback from. Um, Groups
yeah.
as we do, you know what I mean? So when you put things into, I don't know, there's a lot of like the whole danger of regime change is you just leave the next big bully to come in and take over.
Well, that's the other angle of this story too, is that the Shah, who we put in charge, well, we helped become in charge of Iran during a coup that we pulled with the UK back in 1956. We put the Shah in charge up until the revolution in '79. Well, the Shah's son lives here in the United States ever since then,
Hmm.
and he's the guy basically out, telling Trump like he needs to help the protesters and intervene. He's not been to Iran in almost 50 years,
Hmm.
and he's acting like he's going to be the guy to take over.
Hmm.
So everything's dirty about this.
Yeah, I got questions. I don't think I'm ready to make them right now, but I definitely am like, I mean, those are red flags. But at the
But
same
this could go a
time,
lot worse. This could go a lot worse than what happened during the 12-day war. It looks like it's a lot bigger. Where we have this armada there, and the U.S. Abraham Lincoln in the Arabian Sea. It's like 1,000 miles off the coast there, and Iran is threatening to not hold back this time, which they kind of did hold back. They did bomb
no, they
Israel
did.
last.
They did hold back. They had a missile that could make it in like 8 minutes or something like that, and it's faster than the amount of time it takes to reload. So if they wanted the big, the golden shield or whatever they're calling it, and the dome, the Iron Dome, the golden shield was Trump. My bad. So the Iron
Yeah,
Dome, they said it takes longer to reload the Iron Dome. So if they wanted to hammer them with these 8 minute missiles or whatever, they could just hammer them. Just know there's nothing anyone could do because they can't refill their things fast enough. Like they can overwhelm them, and that's I think
or
a scary thought for anyone
yeah,
in that
or all
position.
of our bases in the Middle East or other oil-producing countries in the Middle East to shut down oil production and try to, bring down the economy in that way. There's a lot of things that they can do that cause a lot of problems if they're talking about not holding back. So
Yeah,
I
no,
bad.
yeah, it doesn't seem good. It seems like, and Trump's put us in such a weakened place on the world stage across the board. It was refreshing to see AOC show up at some international events, even though she did make one small misstep about the equator. But she could have just as easily say Southern, like a million other words would have been fine. But it's nice to see that representation um,
I miss
internationally.
that.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
equator. I miss the equator line.
Oh, she said something about Venezuela being south of the equator or something, and it's not quite south of the equator. Something like that. I can't remember what it is. I have to look at the map. I couldn't tell you where the equator is compared to countries in South America, so it's not like I'm like, ha ha ha, so stupid. I don't, I don't, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. But
It doesn't seem like something to make a big deal out of.
now, well, the right wingers are jumping all over her. You know, they're doing whatever they can. They're just giving her free press. She is a smart person, and cunning.
Yeah.
So like that was my experience with her.
I heard a clip that she said that I thought was actually really good, where she was saying about World War II and all the European countries, and she said it was sort of no surprise to her that all the European countries got universal health care after World War II because they kind of it was something that brought them together and recognized their interconnectedness, and I thought that was very valid.
Yeah, she also had some really good statements about a wealth tax because somebody was like, when you run for president, are you gonna make a wealth tax? And she was like, no, we don't need to wait for one person to be president to like institute something like this. So it's sort of, I was talking to somebody about it's just so funny. It's like a Batman connection to billionaires because it's like how much the world has changed since Batman was originally created. Because when it was created, billionaires weren't allowed to exist. We taxed people out of things. So someone having a billionaire, so that's, oh my goodness, so much money. No one's allowed to have that much money. But they had it before they weren't allowed to. And so now it's like everyone's a billionaire. It's like, oh, you have a billionaire, so what? It's like like it's less of a deal. So it's interesting to think about how that period, when we had those wealth taxes, was considered some of the greatest times in American history. And then the more they constricted the wealth tax, the more it led to like changes societally where like things shifted and people demanded more rights, and that was good. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to say like, oh, well, people got more rights because we got rid of the wealth taxes. No, it's inequality got worse and everything got worse, not better. Making people, because as things get worse, they push for more rights, which is kind of like what we're seeing right now with ICE demands, because DHS is shut down right now, but we were going through all the things. Cause I didn't know, and I feel like this is where Trump is really screwed up more than anything, is that because they're constantly like taking every single thing and being like, oh, scrutiny this, scrutiny that, we're getting such an education on how everything works. Like, I did not know that DHS includes TS. I knew it included TSA and, like, Border Control, but I didn't know it was, like, Secret Service. I didn't know it was the Coast Guard. Like, so when you see this big chunk of change going to DHS, because what is it, $60 billion in funding for DHS and $10 billion in funding for ICE, and it's discretionary funding. So you can't turn around and say there should be no funding for DHS because there are things in DHS we need to fund. But the idea that ICE is getting another $10 billion is outrageous. Like, that is just outrageous. So when you talk about this and you're talking about, like, well, what is the right solution here? It really seems like either we need to go after the funding they already got from
the so-called Big Beautiful Bill.
Yeah, the big ugly bill. They got like $168 billion split up two ways. It's just a ton of money. So, like, they're going to be funded through this whole process, even if we're down. So, like, a long shutdown doesn't keep ICE from doing ICE things. All it does is make it so that TSA agents don't get paid, basically. It's TSA, because the Coast Guard will continue. They might not get paid for a little bit. Coast Guard is actual border enforcement. If you didn't know, it is a legitimate, like, in the ocean. And then you're looking at Secret Service, but don't worry, they'll keep protecting the president and the vice president. Anyways,
and that's
great.
Cool.
Yeah. Great. That's such an. And we were having a moment in pre-call that I can't describe as. We're just reliving that and enjoying ourselves. So there was.
But this discretionary spending in the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, it's like, I think it's like 3 times the amount per year that it normally is for
it's a huge amount.
DHS.
It's a huge amount. It's way too much money. Like, it's like the size of other militaries. Like, other countries' entire militaries are less budget than this. So, like, I'm not sure how. So the money's already been allocated. So I'm not sure if it's possible to go back and change that, because the Big Beautiful Bill happened in a reconciliation bill. It's not the continuous budget bill, because a budget bill is like we've been passing the same budget forever. We just edit what's in the budget. It's the same bill that gets passed over and over again. They just change dates in it, right? So like right. So going back and changing some of these like one-time funding deals where they got this big bunch of cash can be like really challenging. You'll need like special bills, or like going back and alter the reconciliation bills. It's a little different. I honestly don't know. I honestly, off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you.
I don't know what the process is, but when you have an agency that's killing people in the streets, there really seems like there should be a way to claw back that money.
Yeah.
You know, like
it's just
or at least be talking about it in that way.
It just is hard to like I think it's gonna be very hard to please people, is what I'm trying to say here. I think like right now the moderate position is abolish ICE. Moderate position, right? That's the get rid of ICE, restart, build something new. A lot of Democrats have said that they've felt extremely that their base is saying absolutely not another dollar. That's not going to stop them, though. That's the problem. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't give them another dollar. Shouldn't. That is absolutely shouldn't happen. But it's not going to do the thing that people want it to do. So, like, they should stop the $10 billion in funding to go. That should not go to ICE at all. They don't need an extra $10 billion in discretionary funding. Like, give it to literally anything else. But that's why I think they have like these like 10 points of like not wearing masks and identifying yourself and blah blah blah. You're like, guys, all those things the Democrats are asking for is to get them to follow the law, follow the Constitution, get warrants, identify yourself. Because right now we're having like you can buy an ICE costume, you know, at any sporting goods store at this point, and like people are getting abducted off the streets by traffickers that act like ICE. Because people, you know, they've kind of taught people that if you can force someone, you can kidnap whoever you want. And that's why you're supposed to have due process to protect from all this stuff. And I feel like the further we get away from due process, we just go into like the lawlessness that they're putting forward is leading to lawlessness with like not hyperbolic criminals. Like, oh, ICE people are criminals, like real criminals. Like, real legitimate criminals. Not to say there aren't real criminals in ICE. I'm just saying, like, there's a distinction here when you're saying we're getting fake ICE people who are seeing this lawlessness and being like, hey, I could do that. You know what I mean? And, like, that is a problem.
Real problem.
Real problem. Because that's the whole thing that, like, the police try to keep together is so, like, people don't get randomly kidnapped off the streets. Which is a much bigger issue, which I think if we learned anything from the Epstein files, is like the trafficking of people is a thing. Like trafficking is a thing. I can't believe you have to say that. Trafficking.
But it's not always about like what's possible. Well, like what's possible in this legislative kind of stuff. Like the opposition party needs to, and we've talked about this many times, argue from the left. Like you don't like have these little asks. Because that's only going to get whittled down to something even less. So, like, what they're asking for is not enough. Forget about the possibility of what can happen and what can't happen. They should be arguing for much more. Like, ICE should be abolished. You know, we need to talk about how we got here with the war on terror, all that stuff. They should be educating the public and advocating for, you know, the truth about the situation, so that when we finally do get a chance to get in a power position, we can really do something.
Yeah, I agree. I just think that even if they argued from the left right now, there's not a lot of win on the table that will make the public happy. Like, I think the public is going to be unhappy, which, you know, at the end of the day, isn't terrible for us right now, because if it leads into more primary wins and more people being like, okay, we can. I don't think voting your way out of this. I hate the term voting your way out of this, because you can't like vote your way out of anything, but you certainly can vote your way into things. You know what I mean? So like you can definitely vote your way into power, and with that power, you know, things can be done. And that's where there's that whole yes, you cannot vote yourself out of it, but you can vote yourself into it. So and that could be good or bad. And so I feel like there's just a lot of talk right now about you know, people like the moderates are really out trying to like get progressives and leftists to like accept a moderate position like already, which is way too early, guys. Talk about overplaying your hand, and they're just like so rude. Like you tell them like they're like, I don't understand why this was a problem, and you explain why it's a problem, and they're like, that didn't happen. You're making. Why is wrong with you guys? Why are you like this? And you're like, you literally asked us what the problem was. I'm telling you the problem. It's not a problem. There's the problem. There it is right there. There it is. There it is. Look at it. You don't understand. You guys are stupid and naive. Like, millennials, we're in our 40s. We're in our 40s. The stuff we're talking about in 2016 was 10 years ago. We have plenty of time to reflect and think about it. And, like, I think the other thing that kills me about it is I'm talking to people about how they cheated, and they think I'm just, like, some guy who heard about it. You know what I mean? I was actually navigating the problems on a day-to-day basis for like 4.5 months. Like every day it was a new cheating issue in a new state and a new problem to overcome, like every day. So like people are telling me like, oh, I'm some sort of, like, no, I was literally the person responsible for responding to the different mechanics to tell people, well, this is how we try to get on top of that, or this is how we use this document or this paperwork or this thing or whatever. Like, we like ran them into the ground, and because they were cheating so hard, and we were just responding with more and more people. I think that's the thing that gets me so much. And they go, well, she had more votes, and you're like, it's a primary, guys. They use caucuses. Like, she had more votes counted. That's why people are mad. That's how cheating works. Like, no, you don't understand. She had thing, and you're just like, no, guys, you don't understand, because you need these people to vote for you, and you're just gaslighting them when they're telling you what the problem is. All you have to be like is like, oh, well, we won't do that again.
Another thing, it's one thing not to believe you when you say it, but like, what about like when remember Donna Brazil wrote that letter afterwards?
Yeah, she wrote a book about it.
Yeah.
She wrote a book about it.
Did they not believe Donna Brazil?
The DNC chair had to step down because she got caught red-handed. Like, and then she lost her lawsuit over her own election that she also rigged. like the entire election process for California.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Yeah, Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Yeah.
Canova sued. I set him up with the lawyer that ran the lawsuit. So people are always like, "Oh, that didn't happen. You weren't." I was literally dealing with it for free, trying to protect like something. And I think at the end of the day, what we were trying to make was the point was that she couldn't beat Trump. She couldn't beat Trump. We were going up against somebody because like the problem is, and this is I'm a little off topic, and I kind of want to get to VRPAC that's coming up because we talk a lot about all this stuff going on. But the thing that really gets me is like the primary is not a popularity contest. A primary is not about electing the most popular candidate, though it can be. It's about making the most intelligent decision to move on to the general election. And that's an argument that they always made. There was, well, Hillary has the better chance of beating Trump, so we should all vote for Hillary. The data did not support that. The polling did not support that. The presence of what was happening, she had created such an echo chamber where everyone agreed with her and was a part of her thing, that it was the classic, yes, what's the thing we say when you have like all the people around, sycophants around you? She's completely surrounded by sycophants who just said everything was great all the time, and they were just going to push her through because they really thought that just being not Donald Trump, not running on principle, but just being not being Donald Trump would be enough to beat Donald Trump, which it obviously was not. And Donald Trump was promising all kinds of things. You know, he was promising the moon to his supporters. And that was the sort of like, I feel like that's where Democratic policies have gone bad, because if you look at when Biden won because Trump was doing such a bad job with the pandemic, which ironically did a better job with the pandemic than Biden did, just acted like a buffoon the whole time. Because Democrats lost their mind the second they were in power and just implemented the worst policies imaginable. Just imaginable. And then they were so bad that the same people who are trying to make excuses for Kamala were blaming it on Trump, even though we know that they passed those things in the last session of the House when they had control of everything. So it's like they willingly did it without a single Republican vote. And they're just like, no, that was the Republicans. You're like, guys, no, It's sunset during the Republican periods, but the law was made when the Democrats. They're just but the way people try to gaslight each other, and I'm just confused if people are like really paying attention or if they're just like actually trying to gaslight. You know, like they're just kind of like they just assume their team would. It doesn't matter. The point is that Biden, when he ran on this idea that he was going to get control of the pandemic and lead everyone to safety. And all he did was deny that it was existing. But the thing was, he ran on a principled idea. He ran on a platform and an idea that was like a thing that people could tangibly change their lives. He ran as the change candidate. And like Democrats just cannot listen. The establishment Democrats, which are really just neoliberal corporate Democrats, who sit in an immense seat of privilege, cannot understand that like the change candidate wins in a general election. So if you run the status quo candidate and make her popular in your primary, which has been, I only say her because it's been two hers, could be a him, we have hims that do it too. Point is that if you put them up there, they're not actually the more popular candidate to win the general election. You have created a false sense of popularity because you're rigging the elections that are supposed to determine how we're supposed to go. That's not you unless you plan on winning the general election. Like, what's your plan there? And it's just
the primary also sets the platform. It gets everybody to talk about all the different ideas about what the party's going to be about in the general election, and it gets everybody it's supposed to get everybody on the same page about who they're voting for.
Corporations don't want that. They don't want any of that conversation. They don't want any of that sort of stuff. They want everything to stay the same so that they can set the tone. They want a split House and a split, Congress, and then that way no one can actually get anything done. The more the same it stays, the more they can plan on their quarterly profit margins to stay, without having to like think about it too much.
Yeah.
That's it. It really. I hate to say it's that simple, and that's why you need more people and more people involved with the process because democracy dies in the dark, right? So like if you're gonna the less amount of people who are involved, the less democracy it is. And for a lot of people, I heard someone's explaining they were trying to say overthrowing democracy and all this big dramatic talk, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure what you're saying is predatory capitalism. Like that's not, you're not describing democracy. You're describing this predatory idea that's ruining people's lives. I'm like, oh, you mean Republicans? And you're like, no, it's neoliberal. It's austerity neoliberalism as a concept. It's all this economic stuff we're always talking about on the show because at the end of the day, like the less money that is spent on the people, it's not about anything other than currency distribution, right? The corporations want to get the money so that any distribution comes through them, and then that gives them control over the people, and then that controls how people go on to vote, and then people vote in favor of the corporations that control all the money that they have access to. So whenever you try to like open up like doing like the child tax credit or any of these other things that give money currency directly to people, the corporations will always fight against it because it loosens their control, and that's really what it's about. Because it's about that's how they like protect their interests. And it's not just money and politics. Like they could do, we always say, oh, it's Citizens United. It's Citizens United. No, I mean, yes, Citizens United is bad, but it's a much larger, because they did it before Citizens United. It's a much more systemic issue where we have to improve the quality of life of the working class in order to get into a place where people are voting and not out of survival. You know what I mean? Like right now, you're pushing on these people that they're like voting to survive. You have to call your government every 6 months so they don't kill you. Like it's gotten a little bit out of hand in the sense that we should be, giving people more money and more currency distribution and more SNAP benefits and more access to, welfare, for example. There should be more access to this stuff, so more currency is distributed through the public. That will loosen the corporation's grip on the public, and then the corporations will have to spend more money and offer better jobs and do all these things to offset that because the market will have changed. And we're in this like really, and that's what austerity is, right? Austerity is this idea where you try to put as little as you can into the market because that way you, as if you're in charge of the currency flow, get to keep as much as you want, and that creates a greater haves and have-not system. It's a whole psychological thing, and we see it in the Epstein files with how all these like really rich and powerful people pass money around from each other, and it's kind of all like a joke to them.
Yeah, they're having a great time.
Oh yeah, right on. Eating all that cream cheese. The most recent drop of Epstein files just happened the other day. I've literally, and I've said this a couple times, so she's probably sick of hearing it in the room with me. But I've even told my wife not to go look at them. I'm like, no, they're really bad. Like, just give this one. Just assume it's like whatever you imagine, like the worst possible thing you can imagine. It's like worse. But
Well, that Emirati Sultan had to step down from his company, I guess, because did you see that's the guy who said he liked the torture
video? Yeah. They got
is that what this stuff is like?
Well, they're just more like descriptions of photos and things like that, and just really, really grotesque stuff, like stuff I wouldn't want to like be caught repeating.
Endure. Okay.
Yeah, it's really bad. So it's just but they have outed more people by name. I think the DOJ is like trying to throw everyone a bone to like send them the other direction. Like Trump is all over it, so they're like giving us a bunch of things like go get this one. You know what I mean? It's sort of like okay, but this isn't. We want all of them. Like that's it. We're done. We're out of bones. No more bones.
Look over there.
Yeah,
we're done.
Yeah, it vibes like that really badly. Because there's something like another. I heard someone explain that how much data there was and how much has been released, and it was like we've had like 30 gigs released, and there's like a terabyte. You're like, what?
Yeah, I heard it's like less than half, right?
Yeah,
is it more than that?
I heard. I mean, who knows at this point? Like everything is a rumor, but I heard one account saying that there was just way more footage than people had thought originally, like just way more. But I suspect a lot of it is like hardcore abuse material, so like you can't really put that stuff out in the public that way.
I can't imagine they're holding out on the nice stuff.
Right? Yeah. Exactly. It's like we haven't seen a big chunk of stuff, and then I just assume it's way worse than what we've already seen. And if it's worse than what we've seen that I shouldn't have seen, then I can only assume it's like getting into really bad territory. But I want names. Who are the people doing worse stuff? That's the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like the public should know who these people are. I think it's a safety issue. You know, you're like that's why we have a sex offenders list, anyways.
And all the business connections, and I mean, it looks like this thing goes all the way back to Iran-Contra.
The thing that really got me was the idea of how millennial culture, how affected we were by like Forever 21 and Pink and Victoria's Secret and all these big brands that were all Les Wexners, and how something like sexualizing children younger and younger and younger, and making it like a societal thing, like grooming people on like a huge scale. And it was all coming from people tied to him. It was all the same. All the businesses that doing that were all owned by the one guy, and they're all tied into this. And it was just like, it's like they were farming out, like, like the scale is really mind bending because it's just and it is looking like more and more that Epstein is Satoshi, the original.
Satoshi?
Yeah, like whatever his name is, the original Bitcoin guy. Earliest Bitcoin accounts, and he had like $100 billion sitting in it, and they talked about using that name in some emails, and they talked about Steve Bannon talked about in some of the recent drops what they were going to do with their $100 million because they were working with these tech guys, so they're like, trying to figure out how to like get into the accounts or something like that. And it was like it was a whole thing. I suspect that when he got arrested the second time, that he lost access to whatever it was. You know what I mean? Because like that seemed to be like that account will be frozen in time with no one having access to it. If money moves out of that account, there's some real red flags. But
just when we said about Les Wexner, I just looked at the date. It's the 16th. I feel like I have the date, the February 18th, stuck in my head that he has to testify. Les Wexner.
Really?
I don't know if that's an open hearing or not, but yeah, it's kind of just that date stuck in my head when I first saw it.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. He's really old. Like get him fine. Like you know what I mean. Like take all the Nazis. They're still like I just saw a case of a Nazi being prosecuted recently. Like get them all, but it's just. I just feel like there's like a hidden Trump pardon list, right? Like Trump's friends who are also on the list are, we're not going to see those people. So I don't know. Everything about this just makes me feel gross. Speaking of feeling gross,
big transition.
Yeah, the transition to the flu vaccine nonsense, which I'm sure is just as exciting. Don't worry, we'll dabble in Epstein references because it's everywhere. But there is a VRBPAC meeting coming up, and they're going to be covering influenza. Has anything been going on with regulations and influenza vaccines recently? I haven't been keeping good track. I feel like everyone has been mad about something related to that recently. So we're going to be looking at flu data. There is, it looks like we're going to be seeing some of the Novavax flu combo data. Maybe it seems like we haven't gotten an official thing. Public comment is up. I assume it will get flooded with people saying to approve the Moderna vaccine, which I did, by the way. We did dig up the data of the from the flu vaccine, the mRNA flu vaccine from 2021. They had data against one of the higher quality flu vaccines, and I'll be honest, it was fine. It performed fine against the other things. I think like what Moderna did with like presenting it as the standard dose information to make it look a lot better, I think was just a really shoot themselves in the foot moment. Like I think that the like having like actually dug it up and looked at it, it was like I mean, it's basically so you have these shots, you have standard dose, right? You have a standard dose that is like the basic dose for a flu shot, and then you have 3 or 4 times the dosages that are considered the ACIP preferred vaccines. And usually we talk about them for like 65 and older because they're better for immunocompromised people, but anyone can get one if that's what you're aiming for. But the idea is that the mRNA vaccine against those better vaccines, it was basically the same response. It's a little different. There's 4. It's quadrivalent. It's a little different, not like hugely, definitely within the parameters to be like that's normal and fine. And I think that if they had like presented that way, the question is like they feel like everyone's very anti-mRNA right now. And that's not true, but they did approve mRNA vaccines. It has happened. I feel like just if they had presented it, they presented the data that I saw today where they showed that it was basically about the same as our ultra dose, our multi-dose versions, but it has a little bit more AE. That was the problem. It has a little bit more AE than it probably would have gotten approved, because it is still in the safety, still in the safe thing. I don't want this vaccine personally. I don't think it's the right idea, but I feel like if they had done it differently, the data supported approval. So them presenting it the way they did, Prasad is a buffoon for just being like, no, we're not going to even look at this. I feel like that was really dumb because he brought all this, heat. But at the same time, the argument that it should be better and it should have less AE, I think it was a concern that Moderna had when they presented data the way they did. So when like you have these right-wingers, now that I've seen it's become a right-wing talking point, is that, anything that comes out should be better than the previous vaccine. That's not wrong. Like, I feel like it should be better. It should be an improvement. We don't need a million vaccines on the market, because the thing is that when you have too many vaccines on the market, it waters down the market for everybody, and then you end up with fewer vaccines on the market. So it seems like more vaccines is good, but you're better off having like a good amount that everyone's happy with the amount that they're working. You start adding in other ones, you're going to start losing better vaccines. And so that's where things get complicated from a business standpoint. And business is a conversation at VRBPAC and ACIP under the Biden administration. Talking to the people about production and how the business end of it actually works was an important part of the discussion. So I know it sounds boring and kind of like I'm being like, oh, Don's catering to business interests. No, the government does, and they always have. So don't think that's not a thing. But I think that I am looking forward to seeing some of the Novavax data and the combo. I'm iffy about the combo vaccines too. I feel like if you've gotten like a priming series of Novavax and you've done the whole series, and the combo vaccine will probably be fine. You'll probably just get them every 6 months. But again, you're like, do you need a flu shot every 6 months? Not really. and was going to see how. So the big problem with the flu vaccine that's sort of sneaking up on us is the idea that we are, if you get a flu vaccine 2 years in a row and you don't experience the flu, you can actually be at a higher risk of hospitalization because of the memory issue that we're learning from COVID. COVID has taught us a ton about how memory imprinting works. And so we're learning that, people who have only gotten mRNA the whole time tend to have their imprinting tied to their original vaccine, because we talk about an idea called original antigenic sin. I'm not a big fan of that term, but pre-Novavax, it was a real thing, because it's very hard to get multiple exposures to antigen without having like a negative impact in some way. So when you're talking about, like, you could get 2 flu vaccines, I guess, but I actually haven't seen any data on 2 flu vaccines, but it's generally 2 exposures of COVID vaccines updates the immune response from your memory response. So the original antigen sin is still there, but it doesn't start hard over, because the whole problem is your immune system. So you get the original infection to COVID and during Delta, right? And then, so your immune imprints to that. And so when your immune system is exposed to Omicron the next time, your initial immune response is to Delta, which can be slow and make it so that the virus can get more of a foothold in your body, leading to more severe outcomes. So if you have 2 exposures, eventually you're going to see more of the Omicron and less of the Delta, even though the Delta does still show up technically in your antibodies, apparently. So Novavax, with its saponin adjuvant, which sounds just so like advertising, but it's really important to understand, the saponin adjuvant overwrites imprinting with a single dose. And this is really, really important for people who want to know, like, well, if imprinting is such an issue, well, with Novavax, do I need to get 2 Novavax every time we switch variants? No, absolutely not. You don't. And it's neat how it does it. I don't really understand the actual mechanism, because I don't think we're in a place with memory implant, like, we understand. Well, it did it. You're like, but why did it do it? Let's just focus on that it did it. And that seems to be a lot of immunology. I wish it was more descriptive. We are getting a little better. But fun fact, we're learning, and I don't know if it's actually fun, but we're learning also that the reason that we keep getting different variants in different parts of the world at different times is because different parts of the world use different vaccines for their initial memory responses. So consequently, the initial response is different than it would be in another country. So where some things don't have, like, they don't take off well because of the base immune memory response that they use because of the type of vaccine. And apparently mRNA is a bigger problem. The study we're reading was like the other countries that didn't use mRNA had a more flexible immune memory response, but there was something about how mRNA just really, really gets you stuck, which is another problem with the product. We actually had A Broken Clock Be Right at least once a day with Malone, wrote that piece on IgG4 with mRNA, and it sounds like, more anti-vax rhetoric. But these are all subjects that I've talked about at great length and are real issues. Another problem that Novavax does not have. So you are going to see more, like, I feel like this year there's going to be a big push against mRNA COVID vaccines, but I'm hoping it's just a switch from we do pediatric Novavax and not pediatric mRNA. Like right now it's pediatric mRNA only, no pediatric Novavax. It should be the other way around, where it should be pediatric Novavax to all ages, and then mRNA should be like 12 and over only. It's because of the IgG4 response and how your initial exposure, it could have messed up other vaccines, which is something that could be happening with the measles vaccines, because we're seeing more partially vaccinated people test positive. So if people were in that high IgG4, babies specifically were in that high IgG4 period during their measles vaccination, because it hasn't been registered yet, that's a problem. It could make those vaccines less effective, especially if people only got like one. It could make them way less effective, because usually you have to get like multiples over the years to build your immunity up, which is please vaccinate your children. Jesus Christ, I can't believe that's a thing I have to explain in 2026. Please vaccinate your children. Space them out if you want. It doesn't really matter. Like we waited till our kids were a little older, but they were both underweight. So, it is weight specific. I got in such an argument with the people at the hospital because I was like, no, they're not supposed to get vaccines yet. And they were like, no, we vaccinate everybody. I'm like, you don't vaccinate a 3.5-pound baby. They're not designed for that. And then when we finally took her to the pediatrician was like, yeah, absolutely, no vaccines until she's at this weight. So that's the thing. Don't let them gaslight you. Anyways, vaccines are safe. All the treatments are safe-ish when they're used as intended. It's when we start using things unintended ways that it starts becoming problematic, which I promise not to start a metformin rant right now. But if you're on, right, yeah, I promise not to. I wish Lurking was here for one of those. He explains it really well. It's always
with
like
metformin.
Yeah, why the metformin is a problem, how it's misleading, how they talk about it. Like, it's a small reduction in some groups if you're a good candidate, and then there are examples if you're not a good candidate. But then you're talking about the adverse events. And then we had somebody who was like, my doctor won't prescribe it to me, but I want to figure out how to get it anyways. And we're just like, there's a reason your doctor won't prescribe it to you. It's what did you say, Biff? It's the second most prescribed medication in the country, something like that. So, anyway.
Right, yeah, it is the second most. So I mean,
What's the first?
if there's going to be a medication that GPs are pretty knowledgeable about, it's going to be metformin, and there's probably a reason why they're not a good candidate for the drug, which is why they don't want to prescribe it so eagerly.
Yeah, but if you're on it, like, by all means, don't stop taking it. You know what I mean? That's
Right, exactly.
It seems like people who do take it and are good candidates for it have better long COVID outcomes. But again, I hate when they're like, oh, well, 40% of them did better than the other group. And I'm like, so 60% of them did the same or worse. And you're just like, no, but 40% of them did better. And you're like, no, I got that. Totally. What guarantees that I am a part of the 40%? And they're like, well, it's kind of random. And these studies, I don't know. I don't care what anyone says. They're done, like, the way they treat long COVID and the way they talk about it. Like, at least we've started doing longer long COVID studies. Like, there was a minute there where they were all, like, 2-3 months. And they're like, oh, see, no long COVID. And you're like, that's not long COVID. Long COVID's 6 months later. And they're like, no, it's not. Shut up. You're like, yeah. So we have gotten more. They're studying it later. But, like, the symptom set they choose. And I also think that in an Omicron-dominant world, I think that doing long COVID testing that does not include objective cognitive testing is a bupkis. Because so much of Omicron is cognitive. And so dangerous. Because you may not die in a ventilator, but you're super dangerous in your 3,000-pound death machine you're driving around with the screen in it. I hate that study that's like, you get two studies. One study's like, well, people who have had COVID, even just no severity, they're basically at the limits of drunk driving. And you're like, okay, so people who don't know it, who have had COVID, they're cognitively at the level of drunk driving, legally limit. And then they have another one that shows screens in cars puts people cognitively at the level of drunk driving. And you're like, so everyone's just, see, if you've had COVID in a car, a screen in your car, you're drunk as hell. You're drunk. You're just a drunk driver on the road, is what you're telling me.
If you put those two things together,
Well, they have 0.16. Are they going to die of alcohol poisoning? It's a 0.08, right? It's a legal limit. It's just that whole math. You're just like, okay. And by the way, dear all COVID conscious people talking about child deficits. Yes, it's COVID, but it's also the screens. And people will say it's not the screens, it's COVID. No, guys, it's the screens too. The tablets are an issue. Let's not kid ourselves. Like, it is. I got kids. We have tablets. The tablets are part of the problem. COVID and tablets. But apparently, it's a drunk problem at that point. So yeah, it always bugs me because you're just like, yeah, these things are just like making the world progressively more dangerous, and everybody is like, no, it's fine, and you're like, well, that's what happens when everyone is participating in the danger at once. It's like you
Again, another thing that's not binary.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not all one. It's not all the other.
Right. The screens are the COVID. And you're like, it's
Right.
a little column A, a little column B. It really depends on the person. I am disturbed though how much you see like we're you go to like a big place and like there are people on screens and they spend hundreds of dollars to go to like amusement parks and there's kids just on a screen the whole time, and you're just like, I can't. Like, there's clearly an addiction there if you're in like somewhere like Disneyland and your kid's still on the screen. There's
You're like, dude, you could have done this at home.
right. right. Yeah, exactly. So it's at least they're not like watching videos of Disneyland at Disneyland. That would be
That would be
the most Disneyland thing ever.
Yeah.
So there is for us, for public comment, I'm gonna avoid the Moderna thing because I don't think first off VRBPAC can do anything about that. It'd be interesting to see if they show data there because I wouldn't be surprised to see them present anyways because FDA. And it's the flu. I would just expect to see it. But our big thing is like we want to advocate that if they start making combo vaccines, that we don't. It's not flu. It's not like combo or nothing. Like it's more vaccines. It's should be the flu, the COVID vaccine, and a combo flu vaccine, and we need all three. And so I just want to advocate in ahead of time that we're not going to a world where it's going to be one or the other until we have data that shows it to be right. Because I've seen, sometimes you get in these committees and they just try to make decisions a little too fast. And it seems like, but it takes years to get this stuff done. Yeah, well, it takes years to get the data to see what's working or not. And I feel like we have this real opportunity to go forward in protections. And when you talk about protections, what we're really talking about is like reducing chronic illness, improving quality of life. Like it's a lot more than just like, and this is why I've gotten so kind of like hooked into vaccine activism, is because it's the one activism where you can affect more people than politics. Like you can affect more people. You can affect people worldwide. That malaria vaccine that we were fighting for so long is going to help kids in Africa. Like it's not, we're not going to get that vaccine. Well, Florida might get it soon if they keep it up, but the rest of the country doesn't really get it.
For Florida.
Right? Yeah, leave it to Florida. But when you're fighting for these things and you have this chance to like help people on such a scale, like this is pretty much the best scale. And like when vaccines work, you like chronic conditions go away, autoimmune disorders go away. Like we've had people make recoveries with long COVID. I mean, there's a lot to do with ME/CFS and POTS, and it's such a complicated, nuanced disease. But when you talk about like persistence and the disease driven by persistence, we have seen plenty of people see recoveries from. That's what we should call disease-driven persistence or persistence-driven. Yeah, disease-driven persistence, right? Or no, I'm gonna work on that. I'm not saying it right. I'm like dyslexia over here. I'm getting it backwards. But I feel like there's a whole thing, disease driven by persistence. There you go. Like there's a real thing there that I feel like is driving a lot more than we think. So like the better vaccines are, the less it is. Because I think we talked about this on the show, and this is a long time ago, but it's true. Like our vaccines are good, but they don't prevent as much infection as we think they do. They can still allow for some types of persistence, and that can still go on to be a chronic condition. You can still get a chronic, it's just less likely, like significantly less likely. So like we need to improve on the vaccines, and then there will be even less. And and then it goes to clean air, because there are some things, like I feel like you talk about things like diabetes that can be driven by so many different pathogens, and persistence in the pancreas and whatever. So like anything we do to clean the air is gonna make people healthier in all these ways. Of course, you can't prevent all disease, but we should at least be trying to prevent some of it. At this point, I feel like we're more focused on creating disease than we are and even acknowledging it. They're like, let's make as much long COVID as we can, and then here's what we'll do. We'll just tell them it's not a thing. How's that? That'll be fun, right?
Yeah, clean air seems like a no-brainer. Well, I shouldn't say no-brainer. After everything we've been through with the pandemic, it seems like a no-brainer.
Phrasing.
Yeah,
Phrasing.
but to just, I mean, really, that would just cut out so much illness. I mean, it's not going to do everything, but like you said, but it'll cast a wide net.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see more people in a position where they're like, I don't know. We just need to do better. We need to do better. No, speaking of doing better, they're already running polls for 2028 Democratic nomination with Harris leading by 38%. Talk about needing to do better.
Yeah.
It's like, after all that like anti-Newsom talk, it's like, would you take Newsom over Harris though? Would you take which, like, what? Oh man, look, it's got Newsom, AOC, Harris, Shapiro, Ossoff, Buttigieg, Beecher, Pritzker, Stewart, Kelly, Whitmer, Moore, and Gallego, and you're just like,
Again, what is the policy that these people stand for? Like, let's
Yeah.
talk about that before we start talking about polling them.
Well, everyone's just anything anti-Trump, which I think is not unreasonable, but it's not reasonable either. Anyways, we need to
But
do
it's
better.
also how we got here.
It's how we got here. I feel like people are just like, the corporations are just so eager to repeat the mistakes that they made last time. They're like, bullying people didn't work last time, but we'll bully them this time. And this is the problem that people
Right.
don't understand about how fascism runs in both parties.
Yeah. It's no kings, but we'll anoint another corporate king.
Yeah.
We'll just anoint another candidate to do our status quo bidding.
Yeah, I feel like the people who claim to be Democrats, who are saying that this is what they'd want or how they'd want it, like, you gotta make politics less of a team sport and less of a unity thing. You know what I mean? Because the problem with a team sport is we end up turning against each other inside of the party, when we should be doing more to like work together and come together. And you can't come together with people who are gaslighting you and calling you names. You know what I mean? Like, that's all that, like, the Harris supporters and all these people who have been on the social media for the last, they've already like given a Republican a better chance of winning than any Republican. Like, the Republicans are doing everything in their power to lose, and the establishment Democrats seem like, whoa, slow down, we can be worse.
Give us a chance to be
Yeah.
nasty.
Yeah, it's just, guys.
No. Yeah.
So-
we need to come together around policy and not personalities and work from that.
Yeah,
Work from that.
We need to improve the quality of life. Like, the thing is they're going to run on a status quo, and you're like, what, Trump's status quo? The status quo Trump created? We can't run on that. We have to run on, okay, now Trump broke everything. How are you going to fix it?
Right.
And that's sort of the conversation. And that's going to be, I think, the policy discussion that is going to be the real important one for the next couple of years, is going to be like, okay, Trump broke it. How are you going to fix it? Because you got two options. Trump's in power forever. It remains broken. Or Democrats somehow take over back power before they pass the SAVE Act or whatever. And then they're going to fix it. So it's like, how are you going to fix it? Because you cannot run on status quo anymore. There is no status quo. If you're just going to put back all the broken things that weren't working, that Trump broke further, you've missed our opportunity, and you're just stealing from us. And all you're doing is setting up the next Republican in power, because you're not going to have substantive change for people, and they're not going to vote for you again. And once things are a little better for a little while, people will be willing to take that risk again. And even if it's just like, people don't think like that in that risky sort of, like, think about how people are with COVID. They don't think about the potential harm. They only think about how they feel right now. And people are motivated individually. So, like, you have to motivate them individually. You can't expect to, like, think as a group. Like, I could say all day long, vote for whoever, but that's not what drives people to vote. And I think that that's the thing that is really missing from the conversation when you think about, like, how these people are pressuring and be. It's very toxic. It's very, very toxic. Speaking about toxic, and I want to wrap this up on this, nasal sprays work. There's this whole push of people who are like, there is no evidence that nasal sprays work. Stop following those people. Like, I don't usually tell people to unfollow people, but they're just anti-science. It's very important. If you're trying to protect yourself from COVID and you're wearing an N95 everywhere, nasal spray should still be part of your protection levels. If you work an 8-hour job and you're concerned about getting infected and you have to wear a mask all the time, you should definitely be coming home and doing nasal irrigation if you care about it. You should be getting Maxim Novavax, so you're getting the 3-shot series. You should be having, a diet that reflects you're trying to boost your immune system, and you should also be using these like nasal flushes and irrigations if you are in that position. That's just how. That is just how it works, and people want to say that the people who want to say that sort of stuff isn't necessary because you can trust your mask entirely are wrong, and they don't care about you. And yes, you can trust your mask, but that doesn't mean that extra steps shouldn't be necessary. Things can still go wrong. No one is invincible, and at the end of the day, all these influencers who...
I don't think there's anyone saying that there's an either or here. It's not like mask or nasal spray. That would be a different story.
Oh, no, they are. They are. No, they are. They're saying that nasal sprays don't work and you only need a mask.
Well, I'm saying the other way around. Like,
for us, yeah. No one was saying nasal sprays. Right.
Exactly. No one's saying nasal sprays. You go out with use your nasal spray and you'll be fine. Don't worry about a mask. Nobody's saying that.
But here's the thing. If someone's not going to mask, I would still hope they would take a nasal spray and do nasal irrigation because it will still reduce infection risk regardless. It doesn't replace a mask, but it will reduce risk. So if you can't get someone to wear a mask and you can get them to do that, then get them to do that. You know what I mean?
Any mitigation is better than no mitigation.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't replace other things, but you got to think about like meeting people where they are. So this like totalitarian, you got to be utilitarian. You got to be like, how do we make this work? How do we get people protected? So one of my children has decided to join the show. I don't know if you can hear her in the background or not, but she is. I can hear her through my headphones. I can only assume. But I think that's it for us. Anyways, I told my wife I'd wrap it in an hour, and we are an hour 1 minute. So it's a scary time. It's a scary time. It's definitely not a time to go to sleep. It's definitely not a time to put your head down. It's definitely not a time to surrender and like give up our future to candidates that already lost. I think it's a real time to like move forward in a way where we think about, well, how are we going to rebuild? How are we going to how are we going to rebuild Trump's mistakes? Either that, it's either Trump's in charge forever until he dies, and then J.D. Vance is in charge forever, or we fix America, and we have to decide what a fixed America looks like.
Yeah. It's not just the absence of Trump, it's fixing these things.
Yeah. It's bigger than Trump. Trump is a symptom. So, and we have to codify. Oh my goodness, codify. So we have less illegitimate things, right, Jesse?
Damn straight.
Damn straight. All right. All right. That's it. I'm out of here. Everyone have a good night. We'll see you on Thursday.